What's going on, everybody, and welcome. Oh, I don't know where Fred went. There he went. Disappearing Fred to start the show, as we got to keep you on your toes a little bit there. Welcome inside the Browns beat as we roll into this offseason, and we have got a huge show for you tonight. As again, we have been just privileged, Fred. We've been privileged all season long to be joined by some of the best and the brightest from the Browns beat, from the writers to the broadcasters and everybody in between. And it started right before the season with our special guest tonight. And we're going to head into the offseason with this special guest as we're going to bring her in just a bit. Mary Kay Cabot is going to join us again. She is Hall of Fame recognized, Mary Kay Cabot. And I can't think of many better people that we could have other than you, Fred, and Mary Kay to talk about what the Cleveland Browns might be doing as they head into this coaching search. Before we get into the episode, and again, we'll talk about other stuff as well. We'll talk about what the Browns may do with player personnel. We'll talk about, I got a beef with the all-pro teams that I got to call out. We got to talk about that, Fred. So we'll talk about a lot of that stuff. So you're just buckle up because you're in for a good one here tonight on Inside the Browns Beat. Before we get going, see the little QR code in the corner. Take your phone, open the camera, let it scan the QR code. Be patient. Sometimes it takes a minute. But when it pops up, get over to that website and subscribe to the OBR. The OBR is Cleveland's oldest, largest independent Browns coverage site. And if you just scan that QR code, it'll take you directly to our subscription page. So make sure you hit that QR code and get subscribed to the OBR. Fred, we're in the heyday for Browns beat writers now of the offseason. The season is like the offseason for the Browns. Now it's the heyday time for Browns reporting. How you been? How's life been out there in Berea? And yeah, they're keeping you busy, huh, Fred?
Yeah, it's back the way it used to be about before 6 years ago. Always something going on right after the season. And, there's nothing new, as far as, just trying to get ready here.
Yeah, I got you. I know we're trying to get ready. Fred and I got thrown off by something, but we're all good with it. So yeah, it is. Again, a little bit later in the show, we're going to run the show a little bit differently. We're going to reverse the show. And that's what we're doing to keep all you guys on your toes. By the way, hello. Welcome, everybody. As the comments are already going crazy. Hello, fellas. Hello, you guys. Our buddy Drew, good evening. Fred and Mike, good evening to you. I got to just say hi to everybody here. Chris saying nice things about our special guest, Mary Kay, Hall of Fame. Very good at her job. Of course. Chris agrees. And then Chris says Fred isn't bad either. And that's how we like to say it. It's not bad, Fred. and the crew. No, I'm excited for this. So we're going to reverse the show. A little bit later on, we'll get into maybe some personnel stuff. We'll get into a little gripe that I have. But we know why you're all here. We are in limbo as Browns fans, as Browns media, because, again, Kevin Stefanski gets the axe, and now the Browns don't have a head coach, and we're just all waiting with bated breath to see how these dominoes are going to fall. And, again, I'm so excited for this, to be able to share the screen with our two folks here who are the best at what we're going to talk about. So we're going to start the show with our special guest. We're going to bring her in from Cleveland.com. Let's bring her in now. We haven't talked to her since a week before the season started. Now we get to talk to her going into the offseason. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome inside the Browns beat, Mary Kay Cabot. Mary Kay, so good to have you back.
So good to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Mary Kay, the last time we had you on, and it was this time, you were still in Berea. So you do actually go home at night?
I do go home. I'm working from home right now covering this coaching search, but I've been spending a whole lot of time sitting right here at my dining room table, working on this coaching search at my computer. So it's been round the clock. I haven't come up for air yet. I did manage to get the Christmas tree down. That was a huge accomplishment. I did that, right? I did that on Saturday. We were starting to call it the coaching tree, but
yes.
So we got that down. And then, but I'm looking at like about 5, 6, 7, 8 returns that I still need to make from Christmas. And those deadlines are rapidly approaching or probably have already passed in some cases.
Yeah, I was just thinking, looking through, like, we've been through this a few times. It's been a few years, but we've been through this a few times. I was thinking back to my first one was, I think, Bud Carson after, they moved on. And then we had Belichick before we had the break of the team moving. And then 10 since 99 is what I have. So, I mean, you got a few stories, as far as, you think of these and it's kind of like you got to have your head on the swivel, I'm sure.
Yes, you absolutely have to have your head on a swivel because you don't know what can happen at any given moment. You have to shower at your own risk. It's just a really challenging time right now. I took out a couple hours to go to the Cavs game. Was that last night or 2 nights ago?
Oh, the bad one, the Jazz game?
Yes.
Ugh.
I was so disappointed.
Yeah.
Because I was excited to be out doing something other than covering the coaching search. They rallied for a little bit there in the second quarter, but then they just couldn't kind of get it together. But yeah, so I have been going round the clock, and it's been different. It's been a very eclectic group that they are interviewing, and they've got some old, they've got some young, they've got some offense, they've got some defense, they've got some coordinators, some guys that have never called a play before. So they're kind of all over the place a little bit here and don't really know where this is going to end up yet.
When you look at it, I mean, why don't you just broke something a little bit ago, latest coaches coming in and the schedule, what's the latest, right now?
Well, a little bit earlier, I found out that they are going to add another name to the search, and that is Chris Shula. I've been speculating that maybe they would put in a request for him, and I was just told today that the Browns intend to put in a request for Chris Shula. Hasn't happened yet. It hasn't formally happened yet, but that is on the radar for them. So I think we can probably expect that to happen, but you never know 100% if that will actually go through. But I've been told that is on the radar. So we'll see about that. And then I wrote yesterday that Jesse Minter is going to be interviewing in Cleveland on Friday. So they didn't interview anybody today, and I don't think they're interviewing anybody tomorrow. At least right now, that's the way that it's supposed to go. And then Jesse will interview on Friday. That will be a virtual interview because everybody is virtual until January 19th.
So Mary Kay and Fred, as people that have been through this a little bit, before we go too deep into this, because it is a list, it is an interesting list, and I think there's some names that can get crossed off from the jump, and we'll kind of dive into all of that. But we got a comment here, and you two have been in that building for a long time, and it's really been, I want to hear both of your impressions of this because it's been a hot button topic for the last few days now, but let's start with this. We got this comment that said, congratulations to Coach Kevin in his 6 years as the Browns coach, including 2 times as the coach of the year, 2 playoff appearances. Sancho Bermuda says, I thought those players played hard for him. So just kind of let's put a bow for our purposes here on the Kevin Stefanski era. You guys have both covered the Browns for a very long time, and you've seen a lot of coaches come and go. You've seen one and dones. You've seen real interesting characters. You've seen Hugh Jackson drive the bus. Remember, he was the bus driver, and you've been through all of it. So just talk about the last 6 years under Kevin Stefanski, what the building's been like, and just you're kind of putting the bow on the Kevin Stefanski era in Cleveland.
Well, I think one of the things that stands out to me about the Kevin Stefanski era is that it was just there was a lot of calm after the storm. I mean, after Freddie Kitchens in 2019, they really needed a stabilizing force, a good influence, somebody that was just going to be really professional and do everything the right way. And that was Kevin Stefanski. He said all the right things. He did all the right things. He navigated the team through COVID and through quarterback controversies and an Odell controversy and some Myles Garrett situations. It was one thing after another with this football team with Deshaun Watson. That was a very, very big thing for him to have to deal with. But the thing that really comes to mind is the fact that he never really had the quarterback situation the way that he really wanted it, right? The first year he had Baker Mayfield and they went to the playoffs and it worked out fine. And that was a good way for everybody to get started in the Kevin Stefanski era. He won AP NFL Coach of the Year that year. Then Baker suffers the shoulder injury in the second year. Things basically go south. And then just one thing led to another. And then, it really unraveled to the point where Baker Mayfield did not see eye to eye with Kevin Stefanski at all. And I remember I wrote the story that Baker called, clickbait. And that was a story in which I was saying that if things didn't change somehow offensively between those two, that he might ask to be traded. And he ultimately ended up doing that. But things went south pretty quickly between those two. And that was unfortunate because if that hadn't happened, then, maybe they could have gone on and done some things and accomplished some things. Then in comes Deshaun Watson. And that, in my mind, it was an 11-game suspension that derailed his first year, a shoulder injury that derailed his entire second season, starting all the way back in week 3 when he suffered a shoulder injury. And then later we come to find out that he had a fractured shoulder. And I still think those two were somehow connected. And then the next year, I don't think he was ready to be out on the field yet. I just don't think his arm was ready coming off the shoulder surgery. And then he suffered the Achilles, and then he retore the Achilles after the season. So Deshaun never worked out. And then, they did the best they could. I mean, bringing in Joe Flacco, that worked out okay for them, made it back to the playoffs, and then got Coach of the Year again. And then, then we moved to this year, and we're talking about having to start rookies all year and not having their act together on that side of the ball in any way, shape, or form, and having to start these two rookies. So I just think that it was hard for him to never have a really good, stable quarterback situation. And I would have liked to have seen what he could do with one of those, but didn't really get it. And now we'll see what he can do with another team, whether he's an offensive coordinator. He might have a chance to go work with Nick Sirianni, maybe with the Eagles, or if he gets a head coach job. We'll see what he can do in his next go around if he has a good quarterback to work with.
Yeah, I agree with like everything you said. The thing is Kevin, like I know Kevin, he's so even keeled, and he never really, even in off the record, at least with me when I was there, never really said how he felt. I mean, he was kind of in the organization, your quarterback guru, quarterback whisperer, guys like Case Keenum and Jacoby Brissett and even Baker, a lot of these had some of their best years under him. But last year, most of us perceived they were going to go all in to get a quarterback last offseason. And in our question, it was like, why don't you pound the table for the guy you want, whether it's in the draft or on another or whatever? And he just, we don't do things that way. We work, and I just never really understood where he was coming from. And I think back to the Baker, him like I know him, Mary Kay. Maybe you know more than me, but I remember after that Steelers game when Baker kind of threw Stefanski under the bus and said we could have had better plays. We could, he got sacked 7 or 8 times, and he said, "I'm going to get surgery. I'm going to do what's best for me."
Right.
Kevin never said a word, but I felt, just me, he was done with the Browns.
Oh, he was done.
And that's when they went all in on the Watson.
Right.
And then he threw a fit. I want out of here. If he'd have just been quiet, they might have just, figured out something. But
it was over.
Yeah, that's the thing with Kevin. You just really don't know, where he stood on that and how much of this was his fault and, or he just took it.
Well, I just think things broke down between the two of them and came to a head in that game. And I do think that, Baker just went off after that and basically said he was going to refuse to play and do what was made a business decision, basically not to play in the final game, and didn't like the way that he was sacked 9 times, that they didn't give James Hudson enough chipping help or doubling help. And And I think that he was implying that Kevin just didn't take care of him in that game. And so, yeah, that got really ugly. That did get really ugly. And it would have been hard to put the pieces of that mess all back together. And they just ultimately did not do that. And I don't know what they would have done if they didn't get Deshaun Watson, because they might have had to go back to Baker at that point, and that would have been very awkward, very uncomfortable. I don't know if Baker would have asked to be traded in that situation or not. And if he had asked to be traded, I don't know if they would have accommodated him, but we'll never know about that. But, in the final analysis of all of this, wouldn't it be ironic if Deshaun Watson gets on the field at the beginning of next season?
Stop it. You stop it.
Yeah, I mean,
it could happen.
Look at where they're at, with Dante Moore going back and very thin in the draft.
Yep.
Anything wouldn't surprise me. I don't know what's available this offseason, but I think even when you look at some of the candidates, like a Mike McDaniel and some of them, some of these guys are almost like not much a different track than Kevin Stefanski, and it just comes down to, I think we need a new voice or something, because at this time 6 years ago, I didn't really know who Kevin Stefanski was either. I knew that he was up and coming. A lot of these guys are going to interview her in the same boat, but you really don't know what you're getting. So I find it a little strange with the McDaniel. He's a little quirkier for sure. And, but it seems like he's kind of on the same type of path that Stefanski was. So, yeah, I don't know in the long run, what they're going to do, but it is strange how this, and then, eyes in the beholder, and now Kevin's had 5, head coaching interviews, and it's like, oh, okay. Everybody else sees him in a different light. So it's interesting.
I think people look at the situation that he was in here and realize that he didn't have that quarterback, that stability, at least for the past couple of years. And I'm sure they feel like if he has somebody that he really likes at quarterback, that he'll be able to be very successful in that head chair. So we'll see how it all works out. It looks like John Harbaugh is probably going to end up taking the Giants job, I would think. So that'll be one that Kevin won't be able to get. But he'll still have an opportunity to maybe go to the Titans or the Dolphins or the Falcons.
Ravens.
Yeah, who knows where this is going yet. It's going to be very interesting to see where he ends up.
So while I have a couple of pros, before we kind of dive in really quickly to the list of names that the Cleveland Browns are going to be looking at, I do want to ask you one more question, because this took the media world and the sports world by storm. And I want to hear you. I immediately thought, oh, what a good time for this to happen with you coming on, Mary Kay, and obviously talking to you, Fred. But with this all going on and Kevin leaving, and I think sometimes people forget the human nature of everything that goes on in sports, but the media as well. And Kevin Stefanski's basically been a colleague of yours for the last 6 years. He's somebody you've had to talk to a lot. He's somebody you've had to find ways to work with a lot. And obviously he loses his job, and the human element of that is it stinks. It stinks. But obviously the thing that happened this last week when the Jacksonville Jaguars get bounced from the playoffs is Liam Cohen's up there at the podium, and it was Lynn Jones from the Jacksonville Free News that just said nice things about him, just encouraged him when he looked bummed out. And actually, in your own room, Jeff Shadell kind of did the same thing with Kevin Stefanski, just gave him some encouraging words, and it was really divisive the way people reacted to it. And some people thought it was just very unprofessional and terrible, and they shouldn't do that in the media, and other people really stood up for it. But when you deal with somebody as much as you guys deal with somebody like, say, a Kevin Stefanski, sometimes that human nature comes into it, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there definitely is a human element. We've worked with Kevin Stefanski for 6 years. You get to know him. I live right here in the same city as Kevin, in Rocky River. I would occasionally see his family. He's got a great, great family, his wife, Michelle, and he's got 3 really, really cool kids. And so, yeah, you do get to know a coach, and it is, there is that human element to it. And it was weird for me that first whole week after he got fired to think, wow, he's gone, and I'm sure that the Ravens writers and the Steelers writers are feeling the same kind of thing, because they're saying farewell to a coach that's been there for either 18 years or 19 years. But certainly there is a note of finality to it. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we're done with him after, spending every single day with him during the season for the most part for the last 6 years. So I wish him and his family well. I hope he has an opportunity to get another head coaching job if that's what he wants. And I think he'll be successful wherever he goes.
Well, it is difficult to some, because it isn't like, okay, once you're fired, then they have a press conference, not too often, where we get to say our goodbyes or whatever. And it's kind of like, goodbye, good luck, and on to the next thing. And you run into them from time to time, and when they're on another team, but it's never the same. And so he accommodated, he would invite us to get together about every year a couple times and just talk off the record, so you got to know him a little bit. And so yeah, he's a great, very entertaining guy, except when he's in front of the podium, when he's the coach of the Browns. But wish him the best as well, and all of us do. We all liked him. It's how can you explain? That's what they get compensated, but they are human beings, and sometimes they get a deal that's whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, he was actually very funny. And when he would be in those settings where, he would occasionally, have a situation where at the Greenbrier or wherever we were, where we would have a little session where we get to just kind of shoot the breeze with him. He's very funny, and he's very entertaining to talk to. He grew up in Philadelphia, and he was a huge, huge sports fan. So he listened to sports talk radio all the time, and he's got great stories, and he understands how this whole media thing works. He's not fazed by criticism. He came from Philly, so he does not flinch at criticism, and he blocks a lot of that kind of stuff out. But yeah, it was fun to cover him. I wish he would have been a little bit more forthcoming with us at the podium. He didn't always give us what we wanted, but he also was trying not to make headlines all the time.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so let's look ahead. Obviously, the Kevin Stefanski era. I think you guys put a nice bow on it right there. That was great. But let's look ahead at the Browns coaching search. And let's start with this, Mary Kay. A big question that I've been seeing a lot of people ask, whether it's over at our website, theobr.com, whether it's on Twitter, is just I think because fans want resolution as fast as possible. And I could throw myself in that boat too, because just this hanging and not knowing what's going to happen is terrible. But a lot of people are asking if, now that all these interviews are happening and now that there's 9 open jobs, including Pittsburgh, including Baltimore, some jobs that are going to be thought to be coveted jobs. Do you feel like is there any sense of urgency created by all the openings for the Cleveland Browns, that you feel like they're trying to get their guy in as fast as possible so they can make sure to get their guy? Or do you really feel like, knowing Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam and the group that's conducting the search, are they going to just take their time and find their guy on their time?
I think they'll take their time and find their guy on their time, but they might have it in their back pocket that they really like Jim Schwartz. And I think that if they want to offer Jim Schwartz the head coaching job, they probably don't have as much of a sense of urgency about that, because I don't know if he interviewed with the Ravens today for their head coaching vacancy, but I don't know if he's going to shoot to the top of their candidate list. I mean, they're interviewing a whole lot of people. I think they're interviewing 16 candidates.
Jeez.
He's a good candidate, and he's from Baltimore, and he coached for the Ravens from 1996 to 1998. So he has a really nice resume to offer them. But I think the Browns feel that if they want Jim Schwartz as their head coach, that they would have a really great opportunity to be able to do that. So maybe that's why they don't have necessarily a big, huge sense of urgency. But I think they are also really learning a lot from these candidates and trying to, find some really interesting young rising stars in the game. And I think they've done that, and we'll see how this turns out.
Yeah, as far as I don't know if you agree with this, but if I looked at what they've done so far, it seems like it's almost like a puzzle they're trying to put together. Are they, they're trying to get to know some younger people, but I think maybe, I'm not sure if they want Schwartz as a head coach or a defensive coordinator, and they're trying to get a piece that would work opposite of him, or, an offensive head coach, and will he stay as a defensive coordinator, or what would be the pieces to the puzzle to make it fit? Because I think they've met the requirements. There's nothing stopping them from hiring somebody right now, right?
No, they have not met their Rooney Rule requirements yet.
McDaniel, I thought he counted, but
I think the Aiden Dirty, I think, counts on that.
They have to do in-person interviews.
Oh.
They have to
all
do
virtual.
in-person. And with some of those guys, you can't do those in-person interviews until January 19th.
Okay.
So Dirty was virtual, and so they have to do those 2 interviews. So they have not satisfied the Rooney Rule yet, whereas like the Giants have satisfied the Rooney Rule and they're ready to hire. The Browns still have to do that.
Okay.
What I mean, if you were like right now, who do you like right now? Or if you had a favorite, what do you think you would do if you had to today, you had to make the decision?
I'm not there yet. I haven't really done enough diligence yet. I want to know a little bit more about Nate and Grant, Nate Scheelhaus, I'm talking about, Grant Udinski, and Jesse Minter. I'm still working through those guys, but I like some of these guys. I was very intrigued by Dan Pitcher. I think that Dan Pitcher, the Bengals offensive coordinator, I think he's really very intriguing and interesting. I like his background. He comes from scouting with Andrew when they were with the Colts together. So he brings that element to it. I have not decided yet who I would hire today if I had to pick from all of these guys yet. I'm still working my way through that. But I would think that within a week or so, I probably will have decided who my number one would be.
We've got one. I want, Mary Kay, if you can clear this up, because I think people are a little confused on what happened. But obviously, seeing the Ravens fire John Harbaugh was a little bit shocking to just to see it happen. And then just days ago to read the news that Mike Tomlin steps down, informs the Steelers that he will not be returning. And the Steelers did not fire Mike Tomlin. So we're getting a lot of the questions on, will there be any interest in Mike Tomlin? But Tomlin's a different situation than all the rest of these guys that have either been fired or looking to be promoted to a head coach. Can you maybe explain that to people?
Well, they still have his rights. He stepped down and they retain his rights through 2027. So if somebody wants to get their hands on Mike Tomlin, they're going to have to go through the Steelers for that and probably give up draft pick compensation. So that's basically the situation with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers right now. And right now, he does not plan on pursuing a head coaching gig for 2026. And I haven't read the whole interview yet because I've been very busy once again today. But I thought I saw somewhere in that there was a family element that Art Rooney talked about today in his press conference for Mike Tomlin. So I don't know if he's got some kind of a family issue for why he needed to step away right now or what. I don't know the answer to that at this moment. But once again, if somebody wants to get him, they might have to pay the price.
You bring up Tomlin, you bring up Harbaugh, 37 years, those two guys have been there. And of course, the Browns are looking for a coach. But I think there's a real opportunity in the AFC North. There's no guarantee. I mean, I would think the Steelers are due to screw this up. I mean, how in the world can you go 56 years with 3 coaches? We see that sometimes in 3 or 4 years. Now, with that said, they'll probably – I remember when Tomlin, it's like, I never heard of this guy, and it's like home run. And the same way with Harbaugh. So, but I'm thinking even with the new head coach, you look at next year's schedule for the Browns, they now are going to have 8 games with new head coaches. There's always some type of adjustment with that. And this year, only on next year's schedule, only 3 of the games are with teams that had winning records.
Yeah.
Now, I know it changes in a year, but and one of those 3 were the Steelers. And, so it's just the Browns, they talked about the 120 days, and all that, but they have a chance to really seize that. I mean, who thought Zach Taylor would be the only survivor of the 4? And the Bengals have a great offense, but they're very vulnerable. So the Browns just have an opportunity to kind of reset and get back instead of being the doormats, because with change of coaches, there's no guarantee that they're going to hit the ground. The other 2 teams are going to hit the ground running as well.
No. And the magic combo usually is you want to hit the head coach and the quarterback. So if it's whichever teams in the AFC can get the coach combo quarterback right, those will be the ones that go on to be successful as soon as possible. And you're right. It's an opportunity for the Browns to seize the moment here and stop getting beat up by their big brothers in the AFC North. This is their chance, but they have to get those 2 spots right. There's no question about that. And there are some good coaching candidates. And then they just have to hope that their quarterback situation works out. And we don't know if it is going to be Shador or could it be Deshaun Watson next year for some or all of the season? Could it be some external candidate? Could it be a rookie? So we just don't know yet. And that's one of the big X factors here.
Well,
I cannot wait for the day that we never have to hear that name again. I cannot wait for that day. But Mary Kay, I'm going to ask you my last question. Fred, you might have another one before we let you get out of here. But, I kind of asked a similar question before, but just a little different. I kind of asked you if you thought maybe they'd rush to try to get their candidate. But if you had like just to give the fans a realistic time frame of when you think it could pop in 4 minutes that they hire a coach, but realistic time frame of when you think, how long you think it could take for the Browns to bring in their coach, what would you say?
Well, first of all, like I said, they have to satisfy the Rooney Rule. And once they satisfy the Rooney Rule, then they can go ahead and make their hire. And if they decide that they just want to wrap up Jim Schwartz and they get through this round of interviews and they don't want to do second interviews and they want Jim as their guy, then they can go ahead and do that as soon as they satisfy the Rooney Rule, which after the 19th, which is, I believe it is Monday, maybe, they can bring guys in and interview some of those guys in person. So it can happen anytime after that. And if it's Jim, then it can happen quickly. If they decide that they want to do second interviews with some guys that are moving on into the championship games and even the Super Bowl, then it could take a little bit longer. And here's one thing that I don't think that they should do. I don't think they should rush the hire and not wrap somebody up just because they have to go play in the Super Bowl. You would want somebody that knows what it's like to go play in the Super Bowl. So I wouldn't do that. I remember I talked to Dan Quinn one year after the Super Bowl, and he would have loved to have taken the Browns job, but they didn't want to wait for him, and he was playing in the Super Bowl. And
yeah, right.
You don't want to do that. I mean, if you have the best candidate and that is your guy, and he's going off to play in the Super Bowl, let him go do that. You'll be able to assemble a staff. You'll be able to catch back up. So I would definitely not let that be a factor.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's like, the Jim Schwartz, I'm not moving off that. I think that's, and I'll talk about it a little later, but I just feel like that's the least disruptive for the defense. There's no guarantee you're going to get those 11 guys to play the same way with a new defensive coordinator or whatever, if you can do that. I don't remember after he was assistant coach of the year and the playoffs, him even getting an interview. Maybe he did as head coach. No. The Ravens thing, okay, are they serious, or is that because Monken interviewed here or what? But I don't think they should just string him along, but I don't think they are. But I do think if you can have your eye on maybe some offensive minds and so forth, and if you're losing, maybe the mentor comes into play or different things there, or the guy from Seattle. But I just think that you hit it earlier, the quarterback situation, you got to figure that out. And I just don't know what they do sitting right here. I don't think the draft is your I'm not interested in a non-first round, going down, and adding another down the road guy. That's just me. But I don't know if there's any veterans out there. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I wrote a column today or a story today saying that with Dante Moore going back to Oregon, I think it increases the likelihood that Shedeur Sanders will be the starter in 2026. But I don't really know if that is going to be the case, because the new head coach is going to have authority over that, and I think that's vitally important. If they feel like he's ready to go, then he will be the quarterback in 2026. And of course, they have to surround him with talent. They have to upgrade the offensive line. But the new head coach is going to have a say in the matter, and that might be a determining factor for who gets hired. I mean, that might be if you can look at this situation and say, we really love Shedeur and we're excited about him and we want to work with him. Let's say Jim is able to say that, then, that maybe you get a little bit more consideration in this. I'm not sure about that, but that might be part of this whole thing, that if you feel like he's the guy, you might that might be on the plus side of your ledger.
Well, Mary Kay, we're gonna find out soon enough who the guy is, and if you're a Browns fan, that as long as you're following Mary Kay, it's going to be a good shot that maybe that's the first name that reports who that guy is going to be. But Mary Kay, just great insight tonight. A lot of good information. I hope everybody was taking notes because a lot of good information on the end of the Kevin Stefanski tenure, on the coaching search, what the Browns are looking for and their approach. And I found out, I not even know this, I'm a Rocky River Pirate. I got a fellow Rocky Riverite on the screen with me. I learned that today, but it was just a great time having you on, and we appreciate you coming and doing this with us and bringing us all your knowledge that you shared with us here.
Oh, sure. Thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, stay warm.
You too. Take care.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
How about Mary Kay Cabot, Cleveland.com again. You're all following her. I don't even have to say go follow Mary Kay Cabot. You're all following her because as far as breaking news and stuff like that, good shot Mary Kay is going to be one of the people that brings it to you. So big thank you to Mary Kay from Cleveland.com. Mary Kay Cabot coming in, joining us, and talking all things Browns. And she gave us a lot. She gave us a lot there, Fred. Again, it's not, I think sometimes people think that when you're talking insiders, the Browns beat, what we do here, all that stuff, it's not necessarily just tell us what's going to happen, because nobody knows what's going to happen. You don't have a clue that John Harbaugh isn't going to call the Browns tomorrow and say, you know what, all right, I want to talk to you. I don't think that's going to happen, but we don't know. We don't have a clue what's going to happen. And I'll get your thoughts. This has been my, well, let me finish that thought and then I'll go to the next one. But as far as just the thought process of the team and the time they're going to take and the questions they're going to ask and the things that are important, Mary Kay gave us a lot of great stuff. So big thank you to Mary Kay Cabot for joining us. Going along with that, Fred, I feel like I've been trying to refocus people a little bit throughout the beginning part of this coaching search. And again, you've been a part of so many of these over the years, and you've been around the NFL for a long time. I think sometimes, and I think maybe sometimes the big media is the culprit of this, and then the fans jump in. But we talk so much about attractiveness of jobs. And I've heard so much about it, Fred, and I know you have too. Is the Browns' job attractive compared to the Giants or compared to the Raiders or compared to the Dolphins or the Ravens or whatever? And people are always trying to rank which jobs are attractive, and then they try to place coaching candidates within those ranks. And what I find, Fred, is that all we're talking about is rosters. That's all we talk about. Well, the Browns have a great defense, but what's their quarterback going to be? Oh, yeah, the Raiders not very good, but they've got that first pick. And that's how the Giants have Jackson Dart, and they had a pretty good defense last year. And that's all we're using to evaluate whether a coach is going to want a job or not want a job. There's so much more that goes into it, Fred. I mean, again, I feel like I always have to bring up the human element, but of course that comes into play. But family concerns come into play. Where do you want to move your family? Which organization do you just feel like you vibed with the best? And I know that is a weird way to say it, but that happens when you go through your interviews. Which guys did you think you wanted to work with the most? Organizational stability certainly comes into play, but there's outside things that aren't even football related. They're not even organizational related, you know, that come into play too. So, you know, Fred, you've seen it a lot. There's a lot more that goes into this than just whose roster is the best.
Well, it is. And, you know, as we get further and further away, unfortunately, I remember Bill Belichick when he came in and did his introduction. He went on and on about the tradition of the Cleveland Browns and the Jim Brown and the history. And as the Browns get further and further, people forgot this was like the Green Bay Packers, you know, of
Right.
the 60s. And it just, because it's been a bad culture of the last 25 to 30 years. And so that plays into it. Then again, there's 32 jobs. So that's why it's attractive to especially these young offensive or defensive coordinators that have never, you know, had a chance to be a head coach. And that's why I've said before they fired Kevin, I just hope they learned. I don't know if you can line up somebody or have a pretty good idea before you make a move who you can get, but they didn't do that in the early days. They thought, I'm just throwing out, say they wanted Nick Saban. We're going to get Nick Saban, so we fire the coach. Oh, you're not in. Oh. And by the time they get a coach, it's the 5th, 6th, 7th guy on their list, and you get, no disrespect, but Rob Chudzinski or Mike Pettin or even Hugh Jackson. And that's where, I don't know. Nobody can see the crystal ball. Nobody knows what Nate Shieldhouse will be in the big picture. Nobody knows what Grant Udinsky or Dan Pitcher. I didn't think much of Bill Belichick, to be honest. When he left here, I thought, well, he might get another job. Actually, he was still the Browns coach when they left, but Art Modell fired him, you know, just before they got going in Baltimore or something. But yeah, I don't think anybody can know for certain. And it could be the hot young guy with the Jaguars just happened to be magic for Trevor Lawrence, or it could just been Trevor Lawrence really picked it up and it all went together because of Liam Cohen. Who knows? But I just feel like that's why I'm more of a non-risk taker. To me, it seems a safe one. That's why I keep coming back to Jim Schwartz. You know what you got? He's been a head coach. I'm sure he learned a lot, but he turned the Lions around from an 0-16. Very similar to Kevin Stefanski, brought stability, got him to the playoffs, and then he got fired with a 7-9 record, which here you'd probably get a contract extension. And
7-9, put him in the Ring of Honor.
Yeah, so, you know, I shake my head at the Steeler fans that are like, you know, I was talking to somebody that's sports talk radio in Pittsburgh. They didn't have one caller that supported Tomlin. They all wanted him out. 19 years of winning football and a 10-7 division champion. And it's like, we're done with this guy, you know, and I know they got a higher bar, but they deserve to get on the 2-15 wheel for a few years.
And do not for 1 second get it twisted. Anybody watching this, what Mike Tomlin's done, especially over the last 5 years, has been, I think, incredible. That's been a terrible roster of football players. It's been terrible. He's been throwing. Their quarterbacks have been as bad as the Browns. It has been terrible roster-wise there in Pittsburgh, and he still finds a way to win 9,
and
10,
that's,
11
that's
games.
Coaching. Somehow he figures out how to win with Kenny Pickett and, you know, guys that, and that's one of the problems being 10-7 is you draft in the 20s and you're not getting a chance to get that post Ben Roethlisberger franchise quarterback. They're right where the Browns are, to be honest, I think.
But don't get it twisted. If they hire a coach and 4 years they go 3-14 and 5-12, and that coach is getting fired. Like everybody's like, oh, well, the nice thing about the Steelers job is just the stability. You know you're going to get there. No, you don't. If you don't win there, they're firing you. You are gone. So you better go
if he
in and
didn't
win.
have 19 winning seasons, he wasn't in this position for sure.
Another comment I want to go back to, I put a star next to it, and I don't mean to call anybody out, but and Sancho, you've had some great comments, so I'm not calling you out specifically, personally, whatever. But Sancho very earlier said, get someone like Dan Campbell in Detroit. Dan Campbell just missed the playoffs with one of the best rosters in football. So, like, here's the thing. And again, I think a little nuance has to happen in the conversation, Fred. Whatever the Browns decide to do, whatever any team decide to do, none of these guys have a golden ticket. John Harbaugh does not have a golden ticket. He's not going to just come in here and magically win football games. Mike Tomlin had, if he was even available, which he's not, so let's not even go there. They're not trading for Mike Tomlin. But Mike Tomlin is not going to just come in here and boom, magic. They're going to win 10 games next year. That's not how it's going to work. It has to be a combination of a lot of things that have to go right in order for you to build this. So whichever person they pick, they've got a chance to do something special. Whoever I don't care whether it's one of the older guys, Todd Monken, or if they decide to go a direction like that, a veteran, or whether it's a first-time head coach, they've got a chance to come in here and do something special. And I will personally, Fred, I'm going to be excited about whichever person they pick until I'm proven to not be excited about them. Right? I'm going to give them the benefit until they don't get the benefit. Not the Browns per se, but the coach for sure. Because they've got a chance to do something special.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was saying there at the end with Mary Kay. I really think it's an opportunity. There's no guarantee the Ravens and the Steelers are going to hit the ground running with a new coach, and you're going in. I mean the Browns too. But when I looked at last year, the top 11 teams that drafted because of their record, 5 of those 11 made the playoffs this year. And turned it completely around. A lot of them had in fact, all 5 of them had a quarterback situation solved. Lawrence, who they thought they had his best year, and Purdy's been steady. And, Vrabel and Drake May and Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. So it's there. It's just pairing it up. I just don't know where you're going to drafting 6 with maybe a 1 quarterback draft get there. But everybody can say, well, the 27 draft, but unless you want to go through a 2-15 season this year, I don't think that's their plan. You're not going to be in position to get the best one or the top one in 2027. I don't think anybody wants to wait. So that's why I just think the opportunity is so important this offseason. No matter who you decide on the quarterback, you got to turn over every stone. You got to get the coach in, and you got to get somebody who can look, a coordinator, or even if it's an offensive head coach that says, okay, and I don't know if Kevin didn't do this, but I didn't get the idea he did that, is say that guy right there, whoever it is, I'm just throwing out Mac Jones, Malik Willis, Kirk Cousins, a veteran, or if he likes Shador or whoever's with us now, and says, that's it. Get me these guys and let's go. That's what you want. But I think the stability on the defense, to me, if somehow, some way, if you don't want to make Schwartz the head coach, I don't know how you sweeten the deal to keep him as a defensive coordinator. If he feels slighted, that why in the world didn't you take me? That's why I just think it's too much of a gamble. They probably talked to him. They went out of their way to say how much they liked him. So I do kind of feel like, that they're going through. Andrew Berry said in his, he said, we might not approach it. I don't remember exact quotes, but it was more on the line, we're looking for specific things. It might not be the big name here or there. To be honest, the John Harbaugh thing probably threw them for a loop, and I don't know if they would say, all right, hold it. We'll throw everybody out the window, including Andrew Berry, if we can get him. I don't think so. but I think they are looking at these young minds, getting a feel, and maybe they could get one of them to be the offensive coordinator to work, with the head coach like Jim Schwartz or whatever. I don't know, but it is exciting, I think, from that aspect that they have a fresh start, because you got two of the juggernauts every year. You knew you had to overcome the Ravens or the Steelers to get to the top of the division. And right now, I feel like the Browns can play and beat the Bengals because they've had their number on defense, shutting down Joe Burrow.
But go back to something, because I think this should be the philosophy too, though. There's been so much talk, the Jim Schwartz talk, so much Jim Schwartz talk. And it feels like so much of the conversation has revolved around Jim Schwartz. So those reports coming out, which, by the way, you don't need to believe every report you read. There was a report that said John Harbaugh will only go somewhere if he can be the general manager and have complete control. And if he goes to the Giants, guess what? They already have a general manager, so that's not going to happen. That was a nonsense report. Yeah. But there have been a lot of reports that apparently the Browns have been suggesting, and we don't know that this is 100% true, but have been suggesting to head coaching candidates that if they were hired, they would like to keep Jim Schwartz. One, we don't know that that's even true. Two, we don't know that Jim Schwartz would accept that situation. Even though he's under contract, it doesn't mean he can't throw a fit and get out. But here's the thing for me, Fred. If that's the most important thing, if that is that high on the list, that you're telling these coaches that they can't come in here and pick their own staff, then you should just make Jim Schwartz your head coach. Like, that, which makes me feel like maybe this has all been a little overblown, because if that is the biggest, most urgent thing for you, you're gonna talk some candidates out of here who go, well, I don't really know Jim Schwartz, and I know he's done a good job there, but I've got people that I want to bring in. So you're going to talk those people out of here. If that's the urgent thing, make him the head coach. Otherwise, I think people need to prepare. And I said this on Twitter when the search started. I think Browns fans need to prepare for the fact that if the Browns announce that they are hiring somebody else as the head coach, you're going to get new coordinators. Unless something weird happens. Maybe if they go with one of these, maybe if they go with Grant Udinski and he's 30 years old and they say, hey, we really think Jim Schwartz should stay on your staff because he's a solid veteran. And maybe he's like, yeah, that's a great idea. But I think the likelihood is they bring in somebody not named Jim Schwartz, you could probably say goodbye to Jim Schwartz.
100%. Even if he looks at the Browns defense and would really like to stay, I don't know. If Kevin Stefanski said, hey, I want you to come with me, and be he said, that's one of the reasons he came here, and he deferred everything. I just feel like it makes too much sense. And, and I know there's been a lot of talk about it, but I think he brings discipline that wasn't here under Kevin. He didn't want to step on his toes. A lot of things, but you heard the players. Myles Garrett threw Stefanski kind of under the bus, whether anybody wants to admit it, when he went on and on about Schwartz, 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and all that stuff. He's really blossomed under him. But when he's asked about Stefanski, he said, well, we've had ups and downs. We've had more downs than ups. If you're giving me a recommendation on my resume, just keep it to yourself if you're going to say that, And so that's why I guess if they don't want to take into account Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, all that, I mean, the players endorsed Stefanski too, but I think more, especially the defense, did Schwartz. And I just think, you got to say, if you hire anybody but Schwartz, you're getting another defensive coordinator. You cannot, I know how I'd feel. I'm like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah. Listen, just real quick, because somebody infiltrated the comments and I was monitoring it. And I'll stand on this. I removed that person because it got It went a little too far. It went a little too far. And we don't need to go there. We can have you guys don't all have to agree with each other. You don't have to agree with us. Some of you guys said not such nice things about our guest. Some of you guys disagree with each other. That's all fine. That's fine. We can all handle that, but let's not take it that far. So we removed that person, just so you know. Fred, one last thing before we end the show here. People are asking, am I still here? Yeah, you're still here. You're not the guest, although you're on my list. You made the list. Fred, I got one last thing, not coach related, but one. Let's give a congratulations to Myles Garrett, unanimous first team All-Pro. He's going to be the defensive player of the year. I think it's a lock. I don't think there's a question about that. But I've got a gripe, Fred. I've got a gripe. I think.
All right.
I think we've got a guy that's pretty widely considered to be the easy decision for the defensive rookie of the year. I think we've got a guy that in his first year was one of the best defensive players in the entire NFL, a guy that for a team that lost one of its best players to a terrible neck injury, and we don't know if we're ever going to see him again out on the football field. The guy that stepped in, a second-round pick, and 150 some tackles. He had over 50 more tackles than the next rookie. But they were impact tackles too. He had a lot of tackles for a loss. He was constantly in the backfield, constantly around the ball, making turnovers, all that kind of stuff. I was a little upset that there should have been some All-Pro love for Carson Schlesinger, Fred. And I got a gripe about it, and I need to know who to take this gripe up with.
Yeah, that's a good question. I agree. Like anything, a lot of this stuff turns into politics. It's like there's guys that, especially offensive linemen, get Pro Bowl year after year, even when they're not playing very well, because they just all vote for them every year. Once they get long past when they were playing the best, I'm sure Schlesinger, I'm pretty sure that, he might have had a better year this year or he might have a better, not as good a year next year and make it next year because of this past year. But I agree with you. I don't know if do they have a defensive rookie of the year as well as an offensive rookie of the year, or do they have an overall rookie of the year? Because
there'll be a defensive rookie of the year and an offensive. Because I think it was the Jets a couple years ago. Well, actually, wasn't it 2 years in a row that players from the same team won it? I know it was Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner won it together. But yes, there's offensive and defensive rookie of the year. And certainly, as Chris put in the comments, number 49 is going to be that defensive rookie of the year.
Well, we know whether he gets the award or not. He's a player. I've said that. You could go back on the tape since our first show that when I saw him in rookie minicamp, he reminded me of Clay Matthews. And he just played whistle to whistle the whole year. He's out there with injuries that a lot of people didn't even know he had. He had a high ankle sprain. He didn't miss a game. They did have a bye in between, but he didn't miss a game. He didn't practice all week, and he played until they shut him down the last week of the year. But yeah, they've got some players. They just got to stack another offseason together. And I hope that's Andrew Berry maturing in the draft and that it wasn't just the luckiest draft ever, because there's 4 or 5 potential cornerstones there. And you're going to need them, especially on offense. And if you could get Martin Emerson back healthy,
yes,
and you mentioned JOK, that'd be like adding 2 Pro Bowl type players back into that top ranked defense. And the defense will even be better with depth. So yeah, there's a lot to build on if you can get something figured out on the offense and especially at quarterback. So that's what, to me, this offseason's all about once you settle on your coaching situation.
Well, Fred, you have put out a lot of good information about the Browns, the coaching search, the offseason. Again, it's kind of nice because the coaching search is allowing us to focus on things before we have to focus on the players and what the roster is going to look like and building that offense and all that stuff. So gives us a little delay on that, but we're going to have it with you all off season long. And we're going to keep the show going. Fred and I might retool the show a little bit in the off season, but we're going to keep it going all through the off season when they have a new coach, when they bring in new players, the draft, and all that as we head towards next season. And hopefully, Fred, year one, I think we had a great show throughout the entire season, but man, did we not get to talk about a lot of fun stuff. Hopefully that trend starts to go upwards a little bit in future seasons. But listen, you've got everything you're going to get out of me tonight. You let me know. Is there any last bits of knowledge that you want to share with the folks before we get out of here?
No, I think we've had great guests all year. I think this was our 23rd show, and I think we had 22 guests. Mary Kay was the first duplicate that we brought back, and we're going to have another one. The same guy we started it all off with, Mark Schwab from Channel 19. He's a partner with me on Off the Leash podcast from WOIO Channel 19 here in Cleveland, and he's going to be here next week, the 21st, and we're going to have week 2, like recap everything to date. Maybe we'll have a head coach by then. After that, we're going to, like I say, might just be me and Mike. We're going to kind of regroup a little bit as we attack the off season, but come back next week. Mark Schwab will be great. He's entertaining. I enjoy him a lot.
He'll have some takes.
He will as well. He will not be shy about his opinions.
Another Rocky River guy, by the way. It's a whole Rocky River thing going on here. I love it. All right. So before we get out of here, just a couple things. One, let me give my shameless plug. Go take a break for an hour and come back 9:00. Garage Beers. It's going live as we barrel towards our 300th episode. We're working on great guests for that. But tonight we've got a great guest. He hosts a show. He's been on the radio. He's been in the media. Hosts a show on Big Play now, Matt Fontana. We really tried to think of somebody that could talk about a few things with us. So we're going to have another coaching chat there. We're going to talk about the Browns coaching situation, obviously, with Matt Fontana. But he's also a big Columbus Blue Jackets guy, and they made a wild move. They just fired their coach and had somebody on the ready to come in and take the job. So we'll talk about that. Grab your beers, come back, join us 9:00. Garage Beers. We'll talk about all that plus a lot more. We got to give our thank yous out. So first of all, huge thank you to our special guest, Mary Kay Cabot from Cleveland.com. Mary Kay gave us great insight here. And so just make sure you're following her, Mary Kay Cabot, on the socials, and make sure you're tuned in because she'll, I'm sure, be breaking some news as we go along. So big thank you to Mary Kay for joining us. Big thank you to the OBR, the Orange and Brown Report. Get to the OBR.com, hit subscribe. Let me get the QR code on here while I talk. It's like I've never done this before. There we go. There's the QR code. So get over there. Make sure you're subscribed to the OBR for all the best Browns coverage, all the best written coverage, video coverage, all that. It happens at the OBR. And whether you're watching us on YouTube, Twitch, X, wherever, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you're following, hit like, all that stuff. We very much we appreciate being a part of the OBR. Fred, you've been here since the beginning. And again, it's your home for great Browns coverage. And lastly, our biggest thank you goes out to all of you. A great night in the chat. A lot of great comments, good questions, all that kind of stuff. We love our fans, our family, I meant to say, in the chat. And we love seeing you every week and hanging out with you on Wednesday night. So thank you for tuning in. And always remember, if you can't catch us live on Wednesdays at 7:00, you can always catch the podcast version, or you can go back and watch it on YouTube, Twitch, wherever you want to watch it. So big thank you to all of you for tuning in. That's going to do it here for this episode of Inside the Browns Beat. Again, stick around for Garage Beers at 9:00. But for Fred Greetham, I'm Michael Keefe. We'll see you next week right here, same time on Inside the Browns Beat. Until then, as always, go Browns.